This building that you guys are looking at right behind me is a Miami Beach condo that was built in 1964, and they could not pass their 50-year condo recertification to basically keep the building in livable shape. And that's why you guys can see all those lines and stuff drawn on the building up there. It pretty much points out all the problems with the structure that would need to be fixed in order to keep the building livable. And you're going to see more and more situations happen like this, particularly in Florida, because these oceanfront buildings take a beating, guys. We're exposed to the elements 24/7. You got sea mist blowing off the ocean. We got a ton of rain here, winds, you name it, okay? The Florida sun, the heat, the humidity, it all takes a huge toll on these old concrete buildings, okay? And what they're doing is all the unit owners here decided, okay, we're gonna take a buyout from a developer. We got approached by a developer, we're gonna sell instead of fix this place up because it's just too costly, and then we're all gonna walk away with a bunch of money. That's great, right? And some of these people got paid, you know, well over 1.3, 1.5 million, some of even $4 million. I'll put the numbers on the screen so you guys can see what some of these units sold for during these developer buyouts. So it was pretty significant. But here's the catch, guys. The new units that they're going to put up here, the new building that's going to be here, by the way, is going to be called the Paragon of Miami Beach. And the new units are going to be fetching anywhere between $3.5 million up to $30 million. And yeah, you heard that right. So you think these guys got a nice buyout, which they did, because units here prior were selling for like, you know, 400 to 700,000. So yeah, did they get a good chunk of money for their old place that's falling apart? Sure, they did. But developers claim this is a great thing for everybody because people get to take this big buyout, they can walk away and buy a nice new place. Great. But then what does this do to the neighborhood? It makes it unaffordable, right? And you're gonna see this happen all up and down the Florida coast over the next few years as this new condo law takes its foothold, where all the buildings by 2024 are going to have to start carrying a significantly higher amount of reserves to pay for these sort of repairs after we saw the Champlain Towers collapse back in 2021. Get ready for this, guys. If you're somebody that owns a condo in South Florida and your building doesn't have reserves right now, or let's say you're looking at buying a condo that doesn't have any reserves, you need to pay attention to this big time, because this could ultimately decide whether or not you're actually going to be able to remain in that condo long term. Usually it's around 80% of the majority in the building say we want a buyout, then usually you'll be left with no choice but to sell, even if you don't want to. So the upside to that is you could end up getting a lot more for the place than you paid, but then of course it leaves you in the position of where do you go next. But just to put this into perspective, guys, the new style of building that's going to be here is going to be ultra luxury, okay? Not only in its price point, but the amount of services, amenities that are going to be available. Like they're going to have, you know, your own personal driver service, like butlers, like that level of high-end luxury living compared to just a regular condo on the beach. And the reason I wanted to make this video today is because this building right next door to this one is supposedly on its way to being bought out as well. I'm not sure if it's from the same developer or a different one. I just heard about this yesterday because I have a friend that lives in this building, and she's going to be going to the meeting that they're going to be having today in order to find out if this buyout's going to go through and how long people are going to have to move out and things like that. So, but here's the thing, guys. She is a renter here. She doesn't own. So it displaces a lot of people, and she works here in the neighborhood. So she's lived here for a lot of years. She works in the neighborhood, and pretty soon she could be looking for a new place to live. Well, what's the problem with that? Prices, guys. Rental prices are absolutely insane all over Miami right now. They have basically doubled over the past couple of years, and you know, where are people like this going to go is the biggest problem. So, you know, a lot of people get excited about these buyouts because, you know, the owners here obviously make a lot of money, which is great, but it comes with its consequences as well, and it displaces local workers. Imagine this is just one example of how many other people this could be happening to, and where do they go? Are they going to be able to stay in Miami? Are they going to be able to afford to live here still? Are they going to be able to find another place that's comparable to this for the same price? My guess is probably not. You know, if they stay in Miami, people are going to end up moving to different neighborhoods and having to change their lifestyle completely and possibly commute, maybe even get a new job closer to where they live now, because it's just unsustainable to be dealing with this traffic, you know, back and forth, paying for parking and all this. You know, when you're here, you can just ride your bike up the boardwalk and get to work, but that won't be the case if you got to live 30 minutes away. This is one of the major problems that we're having here in Miami and Florida in general right now, is affordability, guys. And obviously this is happening everywhere, but affordability is becoming a thing of the past, especially here in Florida. Now in this building, guys, I haven't seen any recent closed sales, but to put into perspective, the last few closed sales I could find in this building are selling between 245, 313K, 230K, 260K. And this was back in like 2020 and 2021. Since then, I haven't been able to find any closed sales here, so nothing in 2022 so far. So imagine, these guys are selling for roughly $250,000 to $300,000 in most cases, and they have the potential to get bought out for the same price as the one next door. You're talking maybe $1 million for their unit, or maybe $700,000 or $800,000, because these units are a lot smaller than the building next door that we just looked at. But obviously the owners here are probably ecstatic, you know, but there's always going to be a percentage of people who be like, okay, where am I going to go now? I've lived here for 20, 30 years, you know? So especially elderly people who thought this was going to be their forever home, maybe they don't want to sell, but they're going to have no choice in a situation like this. And this is just going to be the new norm, guys. I got an email today for a condo they're going to be building in North Bay Village, something they've been planning for a while there, and we've been there a couple times on our walks. And the new units there are going to be anywhere between studios ranging from 360 square feet up to 3 bedrooms that are about 1,500 square feet. But here's the kicker. They're starting at $900 per square foot. So these units are going to range anywhere between $325K for a studio up to $350 million for a 3-bedroom. So are you guys willing to pay that for a brand new building here in South Florida? Because I know a lot of you do want to move to this area. So let me know, is this something that you'd be willing to pay for? Is that in your budget? Especially at these interest rates, guys, so let me know. And by the way, this new tower that I'm talking about that they're gonna be building in North Bay Village was originally planned to be a full-on rental tower. Like, they weren't gonna be selling any of these units as condos, it was gonna be an entirely new rental building. But now, there is a massive shift in the development world where they're not going to be building these big rentals no more, because now rental prices have basically peaked, guys, and there's no more room for the rents to go up. They've already determined that it's going to be more profitable for them to turn these into condos and attempt to sell them rather than rent them out. So this should be a big sign for everybody paying attention to the housing market right now on what's going on out there. Because if big developers are saying it's going to be better for us to turn these into places we're going to sell instead of rentals now, which was the original plan, then this is a terrible sign looking forward in the near future here for real estate sales for investors. Like, it just doesn't make sense to invest in real estate right now with cap rates going down to basically the lowest we've seen in probably the last decade. So, you know, what's the incentive for a developer or an investor right now to invest in rental housing when they're barely making a 3% return on investment in many cases? It's just not there, guys. And right next door to these couple buildings we're looking at, they have this cool little park here, guys. They have a kids playground area. They got all these little workout things here. Sometimes on my late night walks, I'll stop here and do some pull-ups and stuff over there. It's a nice little park. And we're gonna walk around to the other side of this building that they're gonna demolish here, so you guys can see what's going on with it. Now, one thing I've said a couple times in these videos is that I think more and more people are gonna have no choice but to start looking at moving to less popular, less desirable areas just due to affordability, guys. And the reason I think this is because even home builders now are shifting to building in these more affordable areas. Right now, home builder sentiment is continuing to drop. For 9 straight months in a row now, it has dropped to the lowest level that we've seen in a long time. And the only place that home builders are feeling good about building right now are these lower density housing markets, which is basically a fancy way of saying less populated areas that are more affordable, because they know that this is the only place right now that they're going to be able to start selling houses still, guys, even with these high interest rates, because it all comes back to affordability, right? How can anybody afford a $500,000-$600,000 house at a 7% interest rate or 6.5%? Most people cannot. And that's the problem with the higher density markets like Miami like this, and New York and LA, San Francisco, these big cities that have a ton of people living in them. We just don't have the space or the affordability for people anymore. And so I think you're going to see more and more people have no choice but to go ahead and start moving to these more affordable markets. And overall, I think this is a good thing. I think people should embrace this as an opportunity to move to a place that's not completely overbuilt yet, and there's not as much crazy traffic, and you can now take the opportunity to turn this town into the town that you would like to see, you along with your neighbors. So I think it's a great opportunity for people to kind of just move on, get away from the hustle and bustle of all these cities, and just go to a more affordable and frankly probably nicer area, guys. And by the way, I think this is the first time that we've come out here on the Miami Beach Boardwalk. So now that we're behind these buildings, you guys can get the other view of it here. This one on the left is the one that they're talking about doing the buyout today, and the one next door is the first one we looked at from the street. And I'm gonna hold the camera up as high as I can, guys, so you can see that they got bulldozers and stuff in there, and they're starting to demolish this place. Now, they've already kind of demolished the old pool deck area and the parking garage that used to be there. So they're on their way. The next step is going to be implosion. But I would also be worried, right? Because look how close this building is next door. And the crazy thing is the other building next to it is even closer, guys. It's so close that I think it even literally shares a concrete wall. We're going to walk by here and check to see just how close it is. But even if they don't share a concrete wall, it's like probably what, maybe 30, 40 feet away from each other here. So it's extremely close. And I would be pretty nervous living in the building next door when they do this implosion, just because, a lot of times these things go down pretty easily, but sometimes there are complications. And if you can just check videos on YouTube and you'll see that sometimes these buildings don't always go down completely straight like they're supposed to. So, but yeah, you can see just how close these two buildings are. And this is the reason why a lot of people just want out of these old condos, guys. Like, honestly, if I was offered a nice buyout situation, even for my place, and they're willing to give us double what we paid for it, I'd probably take it, because it's one of those situations where how do you turn that down? And also, if the majority of your neighbors are in favor of it and you're going to be kind of forced to do it anyways, then you basically have no choice. You can be a holdout and wait a little bit longer and go through lawsuits and stuff like that. But that's stressful, guys. I mean, who's got time for that? Now, the next thing is the amount of adjustable rate mortgages is just continuing to climb, guys. With these 30-year loans getting more and more expensive by the month, the amount of adjustable rate mortgages just continues to tick up, okay? In July, a little over 12% of the mortgage applications were for adjustable rate mortgages. Why is that? Well, the reason is simple, because it's just becoming unaffordable to do the 30-year rate, because those rates are typically higher even though it's stabilized, and people are willing to take the chance right now in a lot of cases and just jump on that ARM loan. Like, to put this into perspective, some local banks and credit unions here in Florida have said that they've seen about a 25 to 30% uptick in the amount of adjustable rate mortgage applications over the past few months. So that is huge, and especially here in Florida. And what makes things even crazier is they're saying that a good chunk of these people are also looking at buying second homes. So people are willing to gamble a lot on buying this second home, basically in hopes that they'll be able to refinance down the road and just get out of it before the rates go up. They're basically taking that chance. They're rolling the dice, guys. But just like we've been talking about with the HELOCs, how can something like this backfire? Well, it can backfire pretty quickly and easily, because basically, think about this. Most people take the 5/1 ARM loan, which means that for 5 years, you have your rate fixed. And then after that, it can adjust once a year or every 6 months, whatever the terms are, okay? But if you look at what the Fed's doing right now with raising the interest rates and, where Fed interest rate was historically, it was historically way higher than it is now, guys. And there is a possibility that it could remain high indefinitely. We don't know exactly how high and for how long, but taking the chance that you'll be able to refinance to a lower rate down the road right now is a gamble, because there is no guarantee that in 5 years from now, you're gonna see rates lower than they are right now. That's the first risk that you're taking. So you might not even have the chance to get a better rate in 5 years, is basically what I'm saying. The other gamble to this is, say, we have a housing market crash, which looks more and more likely as the months continue to pass by here, and the value of your home goes down. Okay, so now in 5 years from now, your place is worth less than you initially paid for when you got that adjustable rate mortgage. You're not going to be able to refinance. You're going to be stuck with that adjustable rate mortgage, and if you can't pay the new payment, sorry, you're losing the place. So just like the HELOC loans, guys, this is a risky move, and I'm sure some people can pull it off if you have an exit strategy for the property, or you're only going to have it for 3 or 4 years and you're going to sell it no matter what happens with the market. Then maybe something like this could be for you. But for people that don't plan on moving anytime soon, this is a recipe for disaster, essentially. And this is especially true in certain pockets of the country, guys, because there was an ATTOM data report that recently came out talking about where in the US that home values are most likely to plummet in this situation that we're in right now with this recession and inflation. And some of the most vulnerable areas of the country right now are places like Brooklyn, New York, Staten Island, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, Camden, New Jersey, Cook County in Chicago, Illinois, Lake County, Indiana, Solano County, California, Fresno and Madera County in California, San Bernardino County. All these places are looking at big potential declines in their home values as we get deeper into this recession. And this is all based on the cost of ownership, because most people here have to pay a lot more than a third, which is the recommended amount of your income towards housing. So that's the first thing. And the other thing is, guys, at least 7% of mortgages in these areas are already underwater. So that's quite a bit. That's getting close to 10%. So imagine if there's 3 million homes in an area, you're talking 300,000 people underwater. So that's a huge amount, and something that we all need to look at. To top that all off, about 1 in 1,000 of people who own properties in these areas are already in some stage of pre-foreclosure. So these places right now are looking at the biggest declines potentially coming for home prices as we enter this housing market crash, and it's not looking good for them. So if you live in one of these areas, guys, and you're looking at possibly buying soon, keep this in mind, because there could be a lot of deals coming sooner than later. The sound of the cicadas here are like so loud, guys. It's so loud. And when we just walked through here, I don't think we heard anything. So all of a sudden they just started roaring up. Now, one thing I would be looking at, guys, if you live in one of these areas that's poised for a big downturn coming, is I'd be looking at how many new foreclosures are coming on the market right now, and comparing to that to the near future, when you're going to see more of these properties that are in pre-foreclosure start to come to market. And I would also be just waiting in general to buy, because this is basically a sign that things are really going to come down hard in those areas, and other areas might not get hit quite as hard. But I think everywhere throughout the country and really the world this time around is going to feel some sort of depreciation in home prices, guys. Everything has just gotten too far out of control for it to remain as high as it is. And I think that the party is completely over, and we're just going to see everything start to drop right now, especially with the new Fed meeting happening this week. They're going to raise rates again, and this is just going to make things even worse for anyone looking to buy a home right now, or even if you're a home seller trying to get out. It's already too late. I mean, can you still sell? Yeah. Is it going to be easy? Probably not. If you guys enjoyed this video and you found it entertaining, please subscribe to the channel. Check out my next video on the screen right over here, and I'll catch you over in the next one.